Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. And with us today we have Merlin McCormack. Hello.
Good morning, Sam. How you doing?
Good morning. Very good, very good. Can you tell the audience a little bit about sort of who you are, what you do? Just a short summary.
Of course. So my name is Merlin McCormack. I own a business in West London called Duke of London, which is a classic car and sort of supercar hub. It's a big old derelict 1930s factory that we took on about 4 years ago, and we've transformed into a destination for people to come and hang out with their cars, without their cars, whatever, just enthusiasts alike. We've got a pub, a pizza restaurant, wine bar, car showroom, restoration business, all sorts of stuff here. So there's something for everyone. And yeah, we've been going now, it took about a year to build, and we've been going for about 2.5, 3 years, and we're open for all.
Yeah, I think the last time you were on the podcast, so if people want to know about your sort of background and story, they can tune into the first podcast we did, which was episode 26. Now, we are now on like 113 or something like that.
Busy boy.
Yeah, lots of chatting. But that was November 2019, which I'm trying to think what state the place was in at that point. Now you had cars in and stuff like that, and I think you just started building out the offices.
Yeah. So we've got, I think it was just before, or after, because you were here for a while, weren't you?
I think it was after this podcast, the previous podcast that I came in for a bit.
So in addition to everything I've listed before, so we've got all of this kind of central hub within the building where all the car happenings are. We've also got 30-odd sort of studio spaces, artists' studios, offices, and everything else. So we have an amazing community of local independent businesses or individuals or creatives who are based out of here. And I think when we were last talking, we were just finally getting those spaces up to spec. We're now pretty much fully let and have been consistently, which has been amazing. And again, the community down here has just continued to grow organically at such a fast pace. It's been brilliant. We've also, November 19 would have been about the time I signed the lease on a bloody pub, which was a great idea in principle. Yeah. And then COVID hit like 3 months later. So we had, we had like a real baptism of fire into how not to do it. But it was fine. I mean, we've survived the pandemic, which was incredible. I've got my mum in there. She runs the pub, and she's done an amazing job of keeping it afloat and adapting in every which possible way throughout lockdown. What else has happened? In May 20, we opened the pizza restaurant, so that was being built last time we spoke. That's open 7 days a week. We've got a dedicated car storage facility now as well on site for people to come and store their cars. That's gone from strength to strength. We're now expanding that because we're at capacity with a waiting list. And we've also just opened a natural wine bar and shop on site as well for people to come in the evenings and kind of hang out. And you can either buy a bottle to take home or come in for a drink by the glass. And also the coffee shop, Coffeeology. Shout out to them. They've opened to the public as well. They're open 7 days a week.
My favourite coffee shop in Richmond, actually.
There you go. Yeah. So they've got that. So Luca, who owns Coffeeology, the brand, has I've always admired the way he did it down in Richmond. They've got that amazing kind of gothic building on the corner there by Whole Foods. And their coffee's amazing. So it was kind of a natural fit. He's a massive car head. I've bought a couple of cars off of him and sold a couple for him over the years. And they fitted right in. And it's finally, for me, that was like the final piece of the puzzle for people to come and just have an excuse to just be here. And I think the coffee shop's become a real like daytime hub during the week for people. We get people just coming in to work or hang out, and we've made lots of new friends along the way. It's been great.
Yeah, it's quite nice to be able to sort of walk in, grab a coffee, and then have a little wander around.
Have a mince around, yeah.
But you did have a coffee shop. There is still another coffee shop, isn't there?
Yeah, so there's a bakery next door, which is separate from us, and they do the most amazing like baked goods, and they do have a coffee counter as well. But they'll be the first to admit they're a dedicated bakery that also has kind of a bistro offering as well. So they do a breakfast and a lunch in the winter months. In the summer, they do a lunch and a dinner. Food in there is incredible. It's run by a chef called Robin Gill. It's called Right by the Water. You should really come down and check it all out. And their spot's incredible. It's right on the water. They've got an amazing like natural meadow garden. But they weren't there as a dedicated coffee shop. You can, like I say, go in there and get a coffee, but we just wanted like a quick takeaway counter, and it's proven really popular.
Yeah. So, okay, during this period of time, we've obviously had the pandemic. I don't want to bang on about sort of how awful whatever that has been, but from a sort of business point of view, it's quite interesting to now we're sort of, you know, I don't know, we're
hopefully
surviving.
Out the woods. Yeah.
What was that like as a business for you?
Well, I think you've probably heard this from other dealers. It was an incredible time of like, I mean, to be honest, we all were like battening down the hatches, ready to take a hit, essentially. August 20 was our biggest month ever, and that was like really in the peak of lockdown. You know, everything was kind of really intense at that point. I guess you're looking at it from a kind of macro perspective. There was a lot of people, you know, be it with a little bit more disposable income or more time on their hands, bored at home. I, for one, I'm sure you were too, guilty of just sat there like spending even more time than I already do, prowling classifieds, looking for cars that I definitely don't need. And I guess we benefited from that massively. And we've built some great new relationships with new clients. We've seen other people who've either have also kind of gone from strength to strength and adapted during the pandemic, and we've helped them grow their collections and stuff. So it's been a really interesting, unpredictable time for sure. We didn't anticipate. I don't think anyone did. It was such an unknown quantity that we all feared the worst. But we kind of, as much as we could legally, we remained open throughout lockdown. So we were doing a lot of virtual viewings. Much to my absolute amazement, we were selling so much online. We get a great like lead generation through Instagram and stuff like that. But we were like selling stuff to people who were buying stuff sight unseen from all over the country, all over Europe. Which I guess is more common these days with new cars, but with the classic car market and specialist stuff that we deal with, generally people want to come down and see it, but where they couldn't, they were sort of, I'd like to think that hopefully our reputation aided us into kind of building confidence in them, and people buying stuff blind, and we had no complaints. So it was mad, absolutely mad.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Has that sort of stuck along, like, virtual viewings and things like that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, I think one thing that we take for granted is living in London. I know you sometimes spend time outside of London as well, but we're in this massive bubble where we kind of feel like everything's gone back to normal. You travel up north or down to the West Coast or whatever, there's still a kind of air of fear and uncertainty and stuff, which I totally get. And people are being, I taste it, they're probably being a little bit more respectful of the situation still. So we still get a lot of people from afar who do request virtual viewings, and we're doing, nowadays, it's something that in hindsight we probably should have done always, but we now, every time a car comes in for sale, as part of its check-in process, we're doing a complete detailed walk-around video. We've always done a walk-around video, but now we're going above and beyond every nook and cranny. It's like a 10-minute video that every car then has in its digital folder that we can send out at the drop of a hat. We're scanning every part of every service history as soon as a car comes in, because we're now, we've acclimatized to people just wanting to see stuff remotely. And it's working. Of course, there's only so much you can see on a FaceTime call. You'd rather have it on, a hard copy of it, so you can refer to it. So it's something we've adapted to, and it's great. It's become a great kind of kick up the arse and tool for us to kind of build confidence in these people that we perhaps will never meet.
Yeah, it's interesting that I bought my first sight unseen car in pandemic. It was slightly expensive. it was my 812. But
there's a running theme there,
yeah. And that for me was, I knew it had a warranty, so that most stuff was covered. But
it's still a big gamble though, like especially with that quantity of money, man. It's a daunting feat. Like, but again, where did you buy that from?
It was from Tom Hartley.
Yeah, so
you're putting your trust in the dealer,
faith in the hand. Yeah,
they're sort of, if anything goes wrong or if there is a problem, I did go and pick it up, so I had a chance to sort of have a mooch around and whatever. But we did like loads of videos, and with that sort of, there's not much service history and stuff on a car like that. But
yeah, of course.
With older stuff, I'm now much more comfortable if someone has done all of the video, all of the photos, all of the service history, and then you also know the dealer or have some sort of connection with the dealer in some way, shape or form. They're not going to run away. then I'm much more comfortable. And then also nowadays, I guess you can, if you buy something sight unseen and it turns up and it's not right, you can just send it back.
Reject it. Yeah, exactly. I think the best thing about the video stuff, as you say, you kind of want to. I'm happy, especially with the classic stuff. You know, there's going to be things with it. The car could have gone through a restoration a year ago. There may still be one or two things with it.
Yeah.
And we desperately try to point out all of the foibles. We get the car in the air on a ramp, like on a 2-post ramp, not a 4-post ramp, so you can really see underneath it. And we'll show everything in all its guts and glory. I mean, we're huge advocates, for instance, of like under-sealing cars as soon as they're ready to go out to a customer. We will never, ever do it before a sale's agreed in the car, because there's nothing worse than not turning up to sort of an Arthur Daly-esque showroom and the car's still got wet wax oil on the underside of it. But we, ultimately we want to promote the preservation of these things. So it's, the confidence you can kind of gain from people by being completely transparent, even with the shitty bits. It's good. You want to see it warts and all. You need to know what you're buying.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And that does reflect in price. We sort of, I don't know whether presumably some dealers have been like this for a long time, but, showing absolutely everything, telling the client absolutely everything. It's the sort of, I know from selling stuff on eBay for years that, like, if you list everything, like all of the stuff, and you go, there's a scratch there, that sort of stuff, all it gives is the buyer confidence that you're not bullshitting them. Whereas if you just say it's perfect and you post 3 pictures, they're going to have to build in a buffer that you're probably not telling the truth. And presumably that happens with cars. Yeah,
without question. And I think trying to break away from the cliche classic car dealer or car dealer image. I think people are way more accountable these days. They have to be. It only takes one kind of viral review or whatever to kind of ruin someone's reputation. That reputation has got to come before any kind of profit or growth or whatever. It's just, you've got to keep your customers happy, otherwise it's not going to happen.
But and then some people have slightly shady reputations.
Yeah, quite.
And
and that's all we'll say about that.
That's all we'll say about that. Exactly. Ask around before you buy from someone. Yeah. So what else? Okay. So you guys opened a pub into pandemic. I mean, that's a nightmare. Surely that's a nightmare. Fuck. Yeah. Was it open?
So we literally opened on the 14th of December 2019. We shut, I can't remember, like the 20-something of February. So we were literally open for 10 weeks. And it was an immediate, I mean, it seems such a distant memory, but it was an immediate lockdown. Like, we were shut.
Pubs had to shut, didn't they?
Yeah, we leased the pub from Fuller's, so we don't own the building or anything, but we've got an amazing relationship with the guys there. And I have to say, credit where credit's due. They really, really looked after us. I know some of the other sort of tenanted brewery pubs out there, the other chains, weren't quite as lucky, but they really looked after us. They bought back any unopened beer. They did us a deal on the rent, like, without. This was blanket across all pubs. Like, we didn't ask for anything in particular, but they were just like, no, you guys have been great to us. I mean, we were new to the firm, but we just kind of thankfully benefited from it. And of course, it was tricky to adapt, but as soon as we could do, for instance, takeaway pints, we were doing takeaway pints. As soon as we could open outdoors, we were opening outdoors. And it's taken us a long. We're such a small pub inside. We've only got about 40 covers. We waited a little bit longer than most to reopen inside. I think there was, we benefited from an Indian summer recently, so we've kind of kept it open outdoors only until last couple of months. And now we've opened back indoors. We're seeing our regulars back in and new faces. The pub itself is sort of steeped in amazing cultural history. It's one of the last grassroots music venues in West London. So it's a music pub by nature. So it's generally live music 6 nights a week. So you've got cool. Each of these artists have got like a cult following in, locally. It's really, really cool. It's been a really humbling experience, actually, because you see people truly wanting to just enjoy something and support something that they have it's like an old friend to a lot of these people. And it's been great because we were at pains to even renovate it. Really, it was in such a horrid condition when we took it on that we were really as sympathetic as we could possibly be. Basically cleaned it and repainted as necessary, just because it was so grim. But we wanted to keep as much character as possible. I think we succeeded in that because all of the people that had been drinking there for decades are still our locals, and then our crowd from Duke of London has kind of nicely integrated into it. Our crowd is obviously like, I don't know, the demographic in the area is changing so rapidly that watching it and how the sort of new Brentford crowd is integrating with the old, it's been great. I think there was a lot of resistance from the locals initially, but people are seeing, certainly in our case, thankfully, that we're one of them. Like we're not. I think they see like the kind of the flash cars and whatever else, and they get a little bit reticent. But then they realise that we do a lot of work for charities locally. We do want to preserve the pub with the best interest of the pub in heart, not just as a money making machine. Trust me, there is no money in pubs. But it's been a crazy kind of social experiment. And again, thankfully, we've been able to kind of really stay afloat throughout this time with it. I think that's a huge props to my mum for being able to keep it busy despite all the circumstances.
That's cool actually, like, because the sort of, you said the demographic has sort of changed in Brentford, but like when did you first sort of have a property business in Brentford, and how has it changed? Like, how has it developed and changed since then?
Yeah, so we opened off, like, my first showroom when I was 19 or whatever. When I opened that was down at Kew Bridge, where the new Brentford Football Club stadium is. Like, the footprint of that, part of that was my old showroom, and then we went on to take on more space and opened some sort of tenanted units and carried that over down this end of Brentford. So essentially, we've been a Brentford-based business from day zero, and we've been in this end of the high street for since 2016, so 5 years now. We had another showroom before we moved in here around the corner from where we are now, and we took on some more properties, like the workshop building that we've still got now. Took that on about 4 or 5 years ago as well. So this has very much been our kind of backbone. We identify as a Brentford business. We are proud of that. It's a kind of area of London that you either haven't heard of, or if you have, chances are it's probably not for the right reasons. It's always been a little bit rough. Where the town suffered drastically is half the high street, the south side of the high street where we are, was bought up by developers 22 years ago now, and everything was boarded up. So in anticipation of imminent development. That didn't happen. That developer sold it on, that developer then sold it on, that developer then sold it on. And all of a sudden, you're 2 decades down the line, and you've had these amazing wharfside warehouses that would have been, historically have been really, really significant in kind of West London's industrial trade, be it boatyards or plastics factories or whatever it is. And they've all just been abandoned. So naturally, with that comes a lot of crime, and it's just a bad image. So now things have shifted. We've taken over really what is one of those buildings that hasn't yet been demolished, and really transformed it and put a bit of a bit of love into it. And it sounds crazy, but even like the people at the bus stops, you're seeing kind of a real young hipster crowd now. As I drive into work, I think it's becoming a cool area to be. It's the last part of West London that's on the river or the canal, depending on which part of the town you're in, that hasn't yet kind of really gained momentum up until now. So it's incredible to see. And the sort of type of businesses that are opening, like the bakery next door that we discussed earlier, that was a real kind of, again, a kind of social experiment to see whether there was the footfall for that kind of thing around here. And they're packed. You have to sort of pre-order your bread in there because their bread's so good. But it's £4 or £5 a loaf, which in theory, I can see why there was a bit resistance when they did it. But now everyone's adopted it, and it's become part of the community. Same with our natural wine bar. We've been open there nearly 3 months now. Natural wine has got a huge following in East London. I mean, there's so many natural wine dedicated bars, shops, like restaurants that exclusively have natural wine lists. And with natural wine, it's not, in most cases, it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's just natural by definition. But then some of the stuff is really weird and funky and isn't for everyone. But same as the kind of craft beer movement. But there was nothing in West London to cater for these people. Hence why we opened it. Opened it with a dear friend of mine, James Bannister, like I said, 3 months ago. And we have seen what we prayed would happen, in as much as there's so many people that have moved here from West London, from East London, or lived in Central London, and travelled further afar to go to places like what we've opened, and have gone, holy shit, this is finally on my doorstep, thank God for this. And we're now, like, we've already got locals in there that come in 2-3 nights a week, and it's brilliant. Nice. It's showing that, like I say, the demographic is really shifting, but thankfully there's still a huge local audience, hence the pub is still sort of a busy place, and we've thankfully been adopted by the locals as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's great that it's like something like a pub is a classic venue for people to sort of, old people to come across young people without having to directly like necessarily talk to them, but they can just be around and sort of pass on your local stories and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and trust me, there's enough stories around here that the hearsay, gossip, folklore, everything around here is fucking amazing. If there's certain characters that you'll bump into time and time again, and if half of what they're telling you is true, this place is an incredible town. It's been such a cool place for so long. And again, like you said earlier about just being able to pop in for a coffee and walk around the cars, I think we're not a museum. We don't ticket ourselves as an attraction in that sense, but we really do encourage people to just pop in for a coffee and have a wander around. We're not a formal dealership. You're very aware of that. It's a kind of open door policy. We have certain safety precautions in place, like railings and stuff, so people can't damage or access the cars. But you can see stuff if you come and speak to one of our guys. We'll happily show you anything. And we want to keep it really informal, and there's no real pretense. We have a lot of local families who just bring their kids around on a Saturday afternoon just for a mooch around, and that's fine. Ultimately, these kids might one day, and it sounds cliche, might one day come back and buy a car. It's not, but we don't think of it like that. We just want, we want to spread the love and show people that it's not some sort of elitist, kind of luxury swanky place, because it's not, and we love that. Yeah,
but you do have some very expensive cars from time to time in the showroom, so it's not like just cheap, whatever.
Yeah, we try and cater for all budgets, really. I mean, we have built some of the most amazing relationships with clients who have bought sub 10 grand cars for us, and that's great. We've all had to start somewhere, and in some cases it might be these guys have got huge collections already and they just want to buy one because their dad had one when they were a kid, or this is their first classic, or whatever. There's always an interesting story behind each person's decision to want to buy a car. And we really try to retain clients and build our relationships with them to the point where we have such a high success rate in getting the cars back we've sold people. I'd like to think because of the way we handled things in the first time round, it's just amazing to watch these, especially young guys, grow. I think where we've stood out, there's a lot of an older generation who have been incredibly I'm so thankful for it, but they've been incredibly generous towards me because they can see I'm a young guy who's starting out on his own and are really supportive of that. And there's also a younger generation who I guess empathise with what I'm doing and want to kind of buy from someone their own age who's maybe got the shared interest and stuff like that, whereas they feel perhaps a little bit intimidated or out of place at some of the other offerings around in West London or London or further afield or whatever. And with the kind of plethora of cars we offer, if you do come in to just buy 200 grand car or 5 grand car, you get the same level of treatment. We don't really care within reason about what or why you're here. We just want you to become part of our extended family. We've got a much bigger picture in mind, and hopefully that comes across. Yeah,
I think a lot of showrooms are quite intimidating. Not necessarily their fault, but just kind of the way the hires, the people that work there come across as like a certain type of person. Now, it doesn't mean they're not a nice person, doesn't mean they're not super interesting or whatever, but like it's generally, private school guys and everything's super clean and you just kind of like, okay, which, is fine. But it probably does put off a lot of people and it's quite intimidating.
I still get intimidated going to see certain people we work with even. Like I'm like, walking into these fancy showrooms and I'm a bit like, I still feel like a kid in there. I'm like, oh God, I feel a bit out of place. We make a real point of taking on, majority of our staff are of a similar background to me and younger than me. So they're kids that haven't gone to university. Some cases haven't done very well at school at all, but we train them up and try and kind of bring them on board and make them a real part of the business as opposed to just a 9-to-5 employee. We're really amazed at how quickly these guys have grown in their capabilities. A lot of them, there's some in particular that, grades aside, I've flunked all of my exams growing up, but, unfortunately that's become a kind of a measure of people's abilities generally. But there's one guy in particular who is very similar background to me and I'll put him in front of anybody. He can sell cars, he can build relationships. I'm really confident in his abilities and I can trust him and rely on him, and he does an absolutely amazing job. He's 20. He's 20 now. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's incredible to see someone at that age really has taken to him. He's been with me since he was 16. He's just a really, really, really good person. And we really want to invest in these guys' futures as well. And we want to keep them on board as long as feasible, really. And I think that's really, really important. I don't just want to hire the Hooray Henrys straight out of Oxbridge that know every last finite chassis number. Great, that's fine. But I think there's sometimes a little bit of a character failure there.
It is sort of, it's what it is. But it is. I do like how you guys now as well, because you've got all of these offerings in one place, and there are a couple of other places like this, but because you can turn up and you can have a mooch around, but also you can just go and be like, if you're the sort of person that's like, you get a bit put off by the idea of a glitzy showroom or something. If there's a coffee shop in there or a pizza restaurant or whatever, you're like, I'm going to the coffee shop, and then on the way, you have a look at whatever's going
it softens the sort of the fear of it. I hope, because we don't want people to be intimidated here, and we further try and soften things by doing a lot of non-car events as well. I mean. Yeah. It sounds like a horrific cliche, but unfortunately, it's the case with a lot of people. In my relationship, it's true too. My missus has become kind of part of my car world, and I'm grateful for that. But there are certain things that she's like sort of rolls her eyes at if I say, I want to go to this event, I want to go to this event. She's just like, it's just going to be a bunch of blokes stood there talking about what wheel nuts they've got.
Yeah.
Whereas we have had so much feedback from partners or children or whatever, people that aren't necessarily into cars that come along with their friends or their partners, and they're like, I'd never usually come to a car event with him or with her, but I love this place. And it's like, thank God, it's like, this is exactly what we were trying to achieve. So we put on a load of sort of community markets, like craft fairs, alongside Ballymore, our landlord, food markets, music festivals. We're putting on a dog show in spring, and all sorts of weird and wacky stuff. And that kind of, again, softens our blow with the community, but also brings a whole new audience on board to the kind of supplementary offerings we have here, like the pizza restaurant, like the coffee shop. And we've got the gym here as well. You can come along for yoga classes and Pilates and all sorts of fitness things as well. So we really want people to walk through and go, wow, this place is cool. You don't have to be into cars at all. There's no, we don't force that upon anybody. And we've also, I think I said before, and when we spoke on the last podcast, that we also wanted to save some of the local businesses. So we've moved in the local cobbler when he was being turfed out for redevelopment. So we've got an amazing guy here, John Russell, the Brentford cobbler, who has I think it's been an amazing way that we've both grown up, both of our relationships. He's gone from working on Brentford High Street, doing a lot of shoes, keys, all things a cobbler does well. And now we've got a lot of our clients who come in their fancy cars with their fancy shoes, and he's now predominantly doing a mail order service for people's wives' Louboutins and men's nice. Gucci loafers and stuff like that. And the work he does is incredible, but it wouldn't have necessarily formatted itself like that had he not moved in with us. And he still does service the community, so he's still got all the lovely little old dears coming in to get their keys cut and stuff. He's still set up for that as well. So having him here quite literally brings in a completely alien audience for us, who go, what's this place all about then? And I love that. I absolutely, and watching people's faces when they come in is always fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it's not for everyone. We're never going to win everyone over, but generally the feedback's amazing.
No, I really like that. And I like going, let's say, come around to your place and I'll be like, have some little cars or have a coffee, chat about some rubbish. And then he'll be like, oh, this guy, he repairs bikes. And you're like, I've got a bike. That's going to need a service at some point in time. Oh, exactly. I'll bring it here. Why not? Like, he's probably not shit because he's here. Like,
well, I hope so. Yeah, Jim, the bike guy, is amazing. I mean, he was another sort of small business. He was based in Hanwell before, and naturally rent prices were going up left, right, and centre. And we had a sort of a bit of surplus space, so we've helped him out. And all of these guys that we have on site, we have them here. And dare I say that they're on a sort of subsidised rent, so they pay a lot less than they would per square foot for a unit with us than they would locally. Kind of because of the uncertainty and the tenure of the lease, we're not going to be here forever, but we want to make the most and help their business grow as much as we possibly can during the time that we've all got here as well. And yeah, it's just that. It's we've now got a cycling club that meets once a month as well, and we all go out and we call it pedal and plonk. So everyone comes to the wine shop, and then we go out for a bike ride. And there's the option to come back and have a drink. And if you want to have a drink, you can leave your bike overnight, and it's all safe and secure and stuff for the next day, and come back and collect it. It's really chilled. There's not a lot of formalities with this kind of stuff, and we just want it to be open to everyone and not intimidating at all.
That's cool. That's cool. And yeah, you've done loads of events. Like you did, what have you done? You did drive-in cinema?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a lockdown necessity because it was kind of like we couldn't do car meets. I remember, I was thinking back to this the other day. When we first started them, you couldn't get out of your car, theoretically, and go and talk to your friends. We had to kind of regulate, and that was the law at the time. So we had to be policing it internally, and unfortunately it took a bit of an edge off of it, but it was the best possible situation for people, and we just had to offer something. We were so bored ourselves not being able to host our car meets and just having people around us. And obviously as the months have gone by, it's eased. And then it came to this summer, and we didn't need to necessarily do these drive-ins because lockdown had come to an end and people can go to the cinema or they can go and do whatever else, and we were already hosting car meets. And so many people, to be honest, we didn't really have many plans to do it. We kind of thought about it and didn't really, nothing really had been implemented. But as the months got warmer, people kept asking. It was such a well turned out and I think well received event that we kind of found ourselves forced to put it back on, and we're so glad we did because there's so much fun the nights. We've had girls on roller skating waitresses who come around your car and take your order and deliver your pizza and your drinks and stuff. There's always kind of like live entertainment before the show, and it's amazing. I think, and we have kept that as a kind of exclusive classics and supercar only thing, but we then do offer deck chairs for the community, or you can hire a car to sit in for the evening as well for a little bit more money. So we try to keep it inclusive, but in terms of the kind of atmosphere, just to have, it's intimate as well. There's only about 35 cars, but to have 3 rows of just classic and supercars watching a film is really, really cool. To be fair, Georgia, my other half, has been pioneering that thing from day zero. So I'm really proud of what she's achieved there because it wouldn't have happened without her. But it's such an amazing atmosphere down here, and everyone smiles. And by the end of the summer, we've usually just got the same people coming again and again and again. The tickets sell out straight away, and it's in a way it's great. I'm so grateful to their kind of loyalty. But we had to put on second screenings. We usually just do a Wednesday night, and then we had to add a second night because everyone's going, I can't get tickets. It's like, okay, cool, okay, we'll make the most of it.
We are now a cinema.
Quite. We've got our first ride-in cinema this weekend. We're trying to do a lot more motorbike stuff as well. I think I've just kind of got more into it. Personally, we're working with Mallet, who are an amazing independent brand, a couple of cousins, Robert and Johnny, and they are kind of shaking up the motorbike apparel scene with their designs and stuff and the products. But moreover, they organise these incredible events all around the world, like motorbike rallies and beach races, and they've got an event called The Mile where they take over this huge estate up in Peterborough, and it's kind of like Glastonbury, but everyone's on motorbikes. It's just incredible.
Did I see? Did you go on a trike?
Yes, I bought off of it's a friend. It's actually Sam Blood Orange Film's best friend from school's late grandfather's trike, if I got that right. It was a Honda ATC from the 80s, and these things were like banned in America because everyone used to roll over, and it's only a little 125 one. They did the big red ones, which was like I think 690s or something. So it's a solid suspension, but they're on these like huge Moonraker beach buggy tires, so they spring around everywhere, and if you go into a corner, it would just roll over. So you've got to learn to kind of hang out the side like a sidecar rider and stuff. And this thing had been in their family since new, and was absolutely battered. So there's a great guy on site here, Andrew Smith, who is a kind of motorbike builder, restorer, mechanic, and he took the whole thing apart. And when it came to repowder coating everything on it, because it needed to be done, I said, "Oh fuck it, we'll do it like a Barbie trike." So we've done all the hardware in gloss white and all the panels in gloss pink, and sticking it up as like a Mattel Barbie endorsed thing. And I raced that at the Mile and at the beach race this year with Mallet, and that was so much fun. It's hilarious to ride, but it does take some getting used to, because it's so counterintuitive that you really will just tip it on any kind of twist or turn. So anyway, going back to it, the Mallet guys are organising a ride-in cinema this Saturday. So we've got everyone's arriving on motorbikes and they get a deck chair next to their bike. That'd be really cool to see how that kind of pans out. And I think we're going to make them last of the dry weather, and then we'll start again in spring. Now this will be the last drive-in, ride-in for the rest of the year, and then we'll probably recommence in sort of March, April time next year. But yeah, with the motorbike stuff, we're really upping the ante with that. Naturally, kind of primarily because we can only get at our events maybe 50, 60 cars at a meet, but we can get 200 motorbikes, 300 motorbikes. For the same kind of thing. So just because they take up less room. So we're seeing that kind of bike crowd growing down here. We don't want to become a bike destination solely, or the Ace Cafe's up the road that does a great job of that, and I think they've got an amazing niche up there. We don't necessarily want to compete with them in any capacity at all. But for the Malay crowd, I think it works quite well as a bit of a different offering. So yeah. It's,
that's
I'm looking
cool.
forward to that.
You did a hill climb?
Oh God, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, we haven't spoken about that. The hill climb was mental. So, take two people, Georgia and I, who have never competed in, and in Georgia's case, never been to a hill climb, and let's put on a hill climb. What's the worst that can happen? It was everyone. Lots of dealers organise track days, and we do some ourselves as well. We've got a date coming up at Goodwood next month and stuff like that, but we wanted to do something completely wild and different, and without trying too hard. We just thought, we found out about Shelsley Walsh out in Worcestershire is the oldest still operating motorsport venue, and we loved their history, loved the story. We went to visit it and just loved the location, and we just thought, well, this could play into the hands of like a really cool kind of festival vibe. For a car contingent. There's loads of land either side of this hill. It's beautiful. It's set in the Malvern Hills. It's like completely isolated. I think the closest neighbour is the guy who owns the hill, so there's no complaints about noise or anything. There's no noise restrictions. It's just, we thought this is kind of we felt at home already. So we set about organising this hill climb. It was like a Saturday morning meet at the showroom, drive up through the Cotswolds. We stopped off at Dalesford for sort of a lunch stop, and then ended up at base at Shelsley Walsh, set up camp, so people had the option to camp in bell tents, their own tents. Then there's bed and breakfast on site, cottages on site, or they can go far and find their own accommodation in Airbnbs or whatever. And we had a couple hundred people stay the night, and party on the Saturday night after a quick tour of the Morgan factory, which was nearby, which was really good fun. So everyone did a drive out there. And then Saturday night we had a really, really good fun at a party that we organised. We had like a live reggae band on. It was really, really good fun. And then Sunday morning, with kind of cloudy minds, we all woke up and set about this hill climb, which was we played it down. We worked out ahead of time that people would probably get 6 or 7 runs up the hill. We had 100 cars entered across the course of the day, but they did say, look, if this goes smoothly, we can probably get more in. So to kind of manage people's expectations, we told them they'd at least get 5 runs up the hill. I don't know if you know Al Clark, the videographer. I think he managed 14 runs up the hill. I think he took the post on that. But everyone it was constant. But there was no obligation. It wasn't competitive. The vibe was amazing. Kind of like the stock that we sell. There was everything there, from like an F40 on straight tubies all the way through to some like homegrown Unipower like mini kit car things.
Nice.
And Al in his AE86 thing that he's built, and it was really, really, really cool. They themselves at the venue said they'd never seen such a mad mix of cars at one event. And we're just in the process of organising another event for next year, which will be a 3-day event. So we can do 2 days of racing instead of just the Sunday, with more going on in the field. So we had like grass carts going on. We had like sort of off-road activities as well, but we really want to ramp up that side of it as well for next year. You'll have to come along next year.
Sounds like fun.
It's really good fun. The hill itself is really easy as well, so it's competitive. Like in as much as you can really try and beat your times, whatever. But if you're a novice to it, which I completely was, you can sort of take it easy and find your feet. And by your sort of 5th, 6th, 7th run, you can feel yourself getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. Yeah. It's really, really good fun. There is literally no off. It's either down one side of the left or straight into a wall on the right. But thankfully, touch wood, there were no accidents, no offs, no major breakages or anything.
that's probably when 5 runs is perfect, because you're getting to the point where you're like, oh, I know it. I know I can go a bit faster, and it's like, and you're done.
It's kind of, you know, when you get to that point at like 4:30 at a track day at like Bedford or somewhere like that, and everyone's starting to push their luck a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when everyone starts binning it. But it's kind of, it was that similar kind of vibe that people started to realise their limits. And to be honest, by about 3 o'clock, everyone was in the paddock with a pint in their hand, and it was just the last hardcore guys really going for it until 5 o'clock. Because there wasn't, like I say, there wasn't any competition element to it. We did have a kind of an informal, fastest run of the day per class type thing, but it wasn't to motorsport regs or anything. And we won't, I don't think we'll ever do it to that in for the foreseeable future, just because it takes away a little bit of the fun of it.
Yeah. I think the less serious it is, obviously certain bits have to be semi-serious, but the less serious it is, the more fun people are going to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it sounds pretty cool. What else have I seen? Oh, yeah. Let's just talk a little about you and your cars. You bought a Jag. Yeah, I mean... Tell me about this Jag.
So, yeah, I mean, it was something I'd wanted forever. So I bought myself it's a 1953 Jaguar XK120 Roadster, and I wanted one literally since I was a kid. It's like one of my dream cars. I think it was one of the only dream cars that I felt was vaguely achievable at this time in my life, because it's not £5 million like some of the other things on the list. We had a good summer last year, and I to fund building this place where we're sat now, I'd sold in 2000 and whatever it would have been, 2018. I sold literally all of my cars to fund this place. So I slowly been building up a couple of little bits here and there, and had a couple of projects on the go and having some fun with it, but still kind of felt like I was missing a fun car that I was proud of, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, last summer, worked my arse off and decided to treat myself. So I bought this thing, literally classic case of don't do as I do. Bought it sight unseen at an auction, and was assured that it had just done this tour and done 1,000 miles in the last 6 months and all this sort of stuff. So I thought, I'll go and pick it up and drive it home. And we turned up there, and we drove out to Coventry to pick it up. And we'll call the vendor, we'll call him Billy Liar. So I turn up there, and Billy Liar's standing there, and he was like, "Where's your trailer?" I was like, "What?" "I'm driving it back to London, mate." And he was like, "Oh, right." And you could see this like look on his face, and I thought, I was on the phone to you yesterday, and you were like, "This car's great.
Yeah, it's fine.
This car's amazing." So already I was kind of a bit, all right, let's see where this goes. I think I got like fucking 7 miles down the motorway before it overheated. In like lovely day, constant moving traffic, sitting at 70, thinking like, oh, this is fine. And they just randomly overheated, and I was like, this is great. And I had my dad in the car, and he was just like, fuck's sake, what have you bought? So after I think we limped it, breaking down every sort of 5-10 miles. We limped it to Banbury Services, and I got the right ump. And I phoned a chap in Coventry who is the man for these things, Guy Broad. I'd never actually really dealt with him before, and I said, "Guy, my name's Merlin, and I've fucked up, basically." There was no going back. It was an auction purchase. I couldn't hand it back. And to be honest, the story of the car was so cool that I didn't really want to. Yeah, I was kind of. I was even though I'd owned this thing for half an hour, and I hated it furiously, but I was so in love with it at the same time that I had to keep going. So the car was bought from a Jaguar dealer in Exeter when it was new. It's finished in like a pastel gloss green, like a light pastel green, with a dark green, they call it suede green leather. The seats in the car are totally original, so they're battered but kind of still usable. They're not completely threadbare or anything. But the leather is so beautiful. You couldn't replicate it. So this was sold in 1953 to a chap who kept it for sort of 5-6 years. And when the car was sold new, there was a young guy working in the Jaguar dealership called David Harrison, who loved the car. He was just like a valet there, a mechanic, whatever. And he always said, "Oh, one day I'd love that car. I'd love that car." And anyway, he worked his way up through the dealership over the next 5-6 years. And your man who bought it new came back into the dealership and said, "Look, I want to sell it now." And by this point, David worked his way up to sales manager, and he bought it back for himself. So he's like, "This is the car I'd lusted after as a kid." So this is kind of, I kind of empathise with this Mr. David Harrison. So David bought the car. It would have been, I think it was 59 or 60. and he set about kind of upgrading it. I could reading between the lines, it's not really well documented, but at some point in 61, 62, the engine blew under his ownership, and so he fitted a Mark 9 3.8. These XK120s always came with a 3.4, but he fitted a Mark 9 3.8 engine to it, and kind of C-type head and a few racy bits, and a synchro mesh gearbox, because these had a constant mesh first and reverse and stuff. And he started hill climbing it, so it became quite a well-known car on the South Coast hill climb scene. And he raced it between 63 and kind of the early 70s, and it was quite a successful car. It sort of won only in privateer stuff. It wasn't, but back in those days, even the stories we hear about the big names, a lot of the races that Sterling Moss and these people competed in were just privateer races back then. Yeah. So anyone really could enter if you had the car. So the car was campaigned for about 10, 15 years, and then he passed it on to his son, who kept ownership of the car and then stuck it into a museum where it sat down in Devon. It sat in there for 10 years. Then he took it out. He did a kind of light restoration on it in the 90s, repainted the body. So I think that was in the 80s. Then put it back in another museum, and it sat again. And blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it came out of a museum in about 3 or 4 years ago, and the chap who I bought it from then bought the car, claimed to have done all this work to it, claimed to have done all these drives in it and all this cramp. Anyway, the block was completely cracked and the engine was fucked. Dear. So I phoned Guy Broad, and he immediately jumped to the rescue and took the car straight in. And he stripped the engine down, was like, dude, this engine's crap. So we had to decide then whether we put another 3.4 like it would have had originally, or a 3.8, which is the car, what I felt the car had known its whole life. So I opted to kind of break away from the mold and put the wrong engine back in it. So I put a brand new block in it, and we've kind of built like somewhere between a fast road and a race E-type engine for it. So it goes like stinks, about 300 horsepower. It's got a modern 5-speed Guy Broad gearbox in it, disc brakes all round, like adjustable suspension. It's all been poly-bushed and silly roll bars in it, and I drive it absolutely everywhere, all weathers. I took it to Paris a couple of weeks ago in the pissing rain there and back. It's got a roof that's kind of worse up than it is down. I love that thing so much. And yeah, I think we finished it in December last year, and I've done about 8,000 miles on it since.
Nice.
Yeah, drove it to work this morning. I absolutely love it.
I see you in it all the time.
Well, you live down the road from me, and I'm always passing you in Kew Road, like, yo. He after about a month of ownership, I sent it straight back to him and was like, you need to fit a heater to this thing because it's fucking Baltic. This wind comes in from you can't work out where all this cold air's coming in from. So we fit this amazing little heater box. It's so hot like you're sitting in traffic and you're too hot in the car in the middle of winter.
Nice,
which is what I want. Yeah. So yeah, the Jag. That's here to stay for a while. Yeah, I'm very fickle with my cars, but I think that one will hang around for a while.
And then the Range Rover, the yellow Range Rover, is still around.
Yeah, that's like the shop truck now. So we built that sort of layer cake looking thing. I went looking for the original car, found that it had been written off from the film, so I built like an exacting tribute to it, and we've taken the back seats out of it, and that's like our van at work now. Nice. So yeah, spent an absolute disproportionate fortune on that, putting it back on air suspension and stuff. Again, don't do as I do.
Yeah, but then these projects are fun, aren't they? Like,
I think so. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. It's when the bills just keep mounting.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, still eating baked beans. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. With ULEZ, because that comes in soon.
Yes,
doesn't it?
That's in like this week, next week. Yeah.
Is that gonna actually? No, your Jag will be fine because it's a classic car.
I literally own one car that isn't compliant because all of my stuff is too old to be compliant. So there's a 40-year rolling exemption, which they're capping in 2023. So from 2023 onwards, anything that's 1983 onwards won't then automatically become exempt. Okay. So anything pre-83, essentially, you're fine. For anything at the moment up to 81, you're fine. La, 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 la. Yeah, we're quite lucky. We're just on the outside of the ULEZ zone. I live just on the outside of the ULEZ zone, as do you. So we are literally just on the cusp of it.
Yeah, and you don't have to go through it to go to work.
Because we go up the South Cirque, it's fine. I mean, my dad literally lives 100 yards inside it and can't now. He's having to sell his car. Like, it's crazy. I'm not totally opposed to it, to be honest, which might
I think it's a good
ruffle
idea.
some feathers. I do too. But at the same time, I think the way it's kind of just been forced upon us, and there's such, like, the public consultation on it's been absolute shite. The same with this like LTN stuff, this low traffic zone stuff.
Oh my god!
So many councils are now U-turning on that because they realise it was such a fuckery, and they've put bike lanes in that aren't being used. And
well, the LTN, that's just like blocking stuff off, isn't it?
let's just block off the rat runs basically, which I kind of get as well, but at the same time, depending on where you sit, we pay a fee to drive on these roads theoretically. Yeah. Drive on, they're not private roads, and now to sort of you get fined if you're driving down a public road now and stuff if you've taken the wrong turning, and there's these tiny little cameras at the end of the road with tiny signs, and then next thing you've got like £100 fine in the post. You're like, you bastards! I had no idea.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I got done I was in a press car. I was in a GI Yaris, and I was driving sort of northeast Chiswick Bridge, and then the first turning sort of after, as you're going into London, which people might do to get up to sort of like A4 area. Yeah. Just drove down there, and then I saw a sign. There was no signs like pre-turning or anything, and then it just said residence permits only. And I was like, and I literally did the thing of, this is a road. I pay road tax.
Yeah, quite.
I have a residence permit somewhere, and I drove down it. No, nothing. £100 fine. Like, how can you do this?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the way what's been incredible. I've got some friends of mine who live in Ealing whose their own road. They now have to drive. They've got like a flower pot that's been like concrete flower pot. Because initially people were vandalising. I don't know if you saw any of this. It's brilliant. People like pulling them over in this. I'm not advocating like civil unrest, but I thought it was quite poetic the way that people were taking justice into their own hands and constantly ripping these things out of the way. And her road has, where her and her family live. They've lived there for countless years. Her late husband used to work with us, and he would have like a 5-minute commute to come to us. Now she has to go like, no. Yeah. I mean, if you want to come at this from like an emission standpoint, she's now probably adding twice the CO2 output to her journey to get here. Or I can't understand it. So they've not been consulted on this. They're the ones that are protesting. The residents themselves, are like 90% of them are up in arms about it.
So they can't get Ubers. No, they can't like all this stuff, I think deliveries.
It's crazy. There's like certain dispensations for like timings and stuff. But God forbid, say for instance you're an Uber driver and you've gone down there and you turn out these guys shouldn't be penalised. They're just doing their jobs. Like this is crazy.
It is mad, and it's all you're doing is displacing it. So does someone from the council live on that street and want it or something?
Yeah, because it's crazy.
You can drive one street over.
Yeah. Harrow Council, I think, as far as I'm aware, were the first to go, yeah, we fucked up. Yeah, we're going to take these out because we've pissed everyone off. We haven't really discussed it. We've kind of forced this upon the people. The people have now spoken, and the majority opinion is this is a shit idea and should never have been put in. And I think there's Ealing Council are now kind of coming back off it. I'm just thinking locally, and then thankfully Hounslow Council, where we are, is kind of taking a bit of a I think they buried their heads in the sand a little bit over it for too long, and now they're really being held accountable for it, which is great because again I'm all for more cycle lanes. I'm all for I totally get the greater good here, but for fuck's sake, like you can't just shut people's roads without any kind of there was some forewarning, but like without proper consultation, warning, appropriate sort of testing or whatever else,
and they just dump like couple of $100,000 into whatever,
and that's the cost of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember when Harrow did their U-turn, they were working out how much they spent on. They cut down a dual carriageway into one of the car lanes had now become a cycle lane, and they calculated how many bicycles were using it every day, and it was the same as when it was just a narrow bike lane on the side of the road. And there were, I'm sure, there's going to be a saving grace somewhere where there's, unfortunately, less incidents of injury or accidents and stuff with cyclists. But the cost of putting it in versus everything else was just not worth it. And they've kind of got egg on their face.
Like, I don't know.
God,
give all of the residents a free bike.
Yeah.
Instead of spending $500,000 putting some concrete blocks in.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh, it's mad. It's mad. That's a very London thing. I think it's probably happened elsewhere. But
I'm sure there's people listening to this going, what the fuck have they just been talking about for 10 minutes? But sorry about
that. Absolutely. Like just not talking to the community about it as well. And I understand, like, as a sort of car person, I think I would like cars, but I like all stuff. I'm very pro environment and all that, like everything. I want a better solution, but I want it to be a better solution. I don't want to be constantly infuriated by what seems like a worse situation.
There will have to be some compromise to better whatever what we've become accustomed to. I'm the same. I'm in the same mindset. I'm totally game for like positive change. Like I said, I'm not totally against the ULEZ, and I'm kind of I suppose in a really selfish way. I'm kind of looking forward to potentially London being less busy.
I don't think London will be less busy, but less pollution will be really nice.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we can drive our classic cars, which doesn't make any sense.
I'm not complaining. I had a local councillor in here recently, and she said, she goes, "Oh, what are you going to do about all of the all of this ULEZ stuff?" And I said, "Oh, actually, we're exempt." What? I mean, you guys came up with this. This wasn't my decision.
Yeah, one of the people at the top has some classic cars.
Quite. I'm not complaining. But yeah, I think. But then you look at. And I'm sure you've probably discussed this on this before, but the kind of the lifespan of these modern eco vehicles versus keeping, versus the kind of carbon damage footprint, whatever you want to call it, of keeping one of these classics alive. There's an argument for both, sure, but when you hear all these sort of headline horror stories about how much it really does take to produce and then recycle what is recyclable on, for instance, a Tesla or something, versus keeping a car that's been on the road for 60, 70 years on the road. Yes, you've got to put high octane in it now, E5 or whatever. Yeah, you've got to kind of look at
it's
on a case
swinging
by case
towards the electric car in this situation. But if you've got a classic car and you don't use it that often, give them a break.
Yeah.
Like, we've got bigger fish to fry in that regard. And electric cars, I know a lot of the sort of people in the car world sort of think they're the devil and are sort of destroying. There's some sort of belief they're literally destroying the planet. Now, they're not. There's aspects of it that are not great. Not great,
but I like to think that over time that will improve, and we're in the early stages of really seeing it become adopted. But like you say, what pisses me off is when people kind of take the stance of, that gas guzzling thing. It's like, yeah, fair enough, it is, but we've preserved this with nothing. There's no, beyond the obvious emissions, there's no wastage here. From where I'm stood, there is so much more to be said for keeping something going than this kind of disposable culture that our generation's become used to with PCP deals. And after 3 years, you've got cars that are just sat there redundant, especially if they're now not compliant, which is mind-boggling. The amount of wastage from that is it's horrible.
Yeah, it's true. It is like a culture, isn't it? Of, I'm going to repair stuff, I'm going to fix it, and that if more people can do that. I had a moment recently, which I don't know why I suddenly thought it. I was just looking at a car. It was a modern car, and it was just like, this is a hunk of like bolts and metal and plastic stuck together. Like, and I don't know why I've never really had that revelation before, but like, if something breaks, you can just if you know how, take it all apart and fix whatever the thing is that's broken.
But it's like people getting nervous about all these uber valuable cars racing at Goodwood or wherever, Nürburgring 24 or whatever.
Aluminium.
It's just a bit of tin. Like, yes, it's historically important. I appreciate they need to be preserved as artifacts. But God forbid, if something does go wrong, which it invariably often does, I mean, these things, they're all fucking crashed in, period. No one really cares.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as long as you rebuild it true to form, it's great. And people are, but don't you think that... No. It was built 50, 60 years ago when they didn't have the technology we've got now. It will be fine. There's nothing scary.
It will absolutely be fine. Yeah. If it's even the real one.
Yeah, quite. Let's not talk about that. Yeah, we'll ruffle some proper feathers there. But yes, I couldn't agree
I have
more.
no problem with people racing whatever they like, as long as
me neither.
I just think we should have a declaration. That's my only thing in the whole thing. It's like, if someone is racing the real one and it's all original, I think they should be given some props.
Yeah,
but they're all bloody expensive anyway.
Yeah, but exactly. Even if it's a grid full of Kirkham Cobras pretending to be the real deal, they're still like 300 grand a pop. So yeah, fair play to us.
Exactly. Crashing them is still very expensive.
Yeah.
Have you been to any of the Goodwood events this year?
Yeah, we did. I think I went to all of them actually. Did I go to Festival? No, I didn't go to Festival.
Did you go to Members Meet?
I went to Members Meet, and I went to Members Meet last weekend. I did the Revival. We're due to go to Festival Speed, and I got halfway there, we'd realised we left our tickets there. So took a U-turn, came home, got home, and the dog had eaten like this huge rubber toy thing. We actually ingested it, so we had to take him to the vet. So we missed Festival of Speed. I bought Georgia a puppy last Christmas. He's the best thing ever, but he just sees stuff and eats it. So we now have this pen that we've like huge pen, but we can only leave his water bowl in there when we go out because it's just, and that's stainless steel. If you can get through that, I mean, we're good luck to him, frankly. But we ended up at Revival, which we went both the Saturday and Sunday. That was incredible. I mean, to see them come out of, again, as with all events, we've all suffered from it, but to see them come out and really, that was, as far as I was concerned, the best produced Revival ever. The amount of sort of extracurricular stuff that was going on there was mad. I think they did a really good job of doing that over the road thing this year, where they had a kind of separate festival. Sunday night, you finish racing at 6. We stayed till like 9 p.m. because we went over the road, had some food, bumped into loads of friends, and it's a really, really nice atmosphere and great idea. That
it was the first event that I've been to in a long time where I kind of wish I'd done 2 days and was staying.
Me too. Yeah. Well, we got there. We had events running the Saturday and the Sunday morning here, so we didn't get there till the afternoon on both days, and we were only due to go on the Saturday afternoon. We had such little time there. We felt we'd been like shortchanged, so we immediately got hold of some tickets for Sunday, and we're like, we have to come back tomorrow because this is just so good. I'm so glad we did as well. And then we were at Members Meet the weekend just gone, and that was great. We went on the Sunday, and Members Meet, so I think it's just a completely unique vibe for the UK because you go to a lot of the classic stuff, be it Brands or Silverstone or whatever, and it's I think Silverstone Classic kind of gets a similar atmosphere where it's very laid back. I just feel that Goodwood somehow pull off this kind of open pit environment with a little bit more style. It's just a nice, cool place to be. I think they do such a great job of it.
Yeah, I think it's got to be due to it's just the place and the layout. Like, you can't go to a Silverstone International F1 pits and it have the same atmosphere as like
no, but sheds. I mean, I was referring, I was referring to the classic they have there, but like, in the same, it's the same effect because it's still in the wing. Like, you're in this huge, amazing glass, beautiful building, but you're right. There's no character there that they have down at Goodwood. I think you can take what I love about Goodwood. You can point and shoot and take a photo, put it in black and white, and the photo you couldn't date it. It could have been any time in the last 6 or 7 decades. I love that. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so cool. And even like the amount of effort people go to, like I see from like a photographer's point of view, I'm walking around with like modern stuff because there's no way I'm shooting on some old stuff. But you look around and there's half the people are carrying like old cameras.
Oh god, yeah.
Old cameras.
Be it like an 80s Pentax thing all the way back to like a 30s Leica. It's amazing. Yeah, it's so cool. I think, and yeah, you're right. The amount of effort that people do go to. It's funny as well. Like, even looking online at vintage clothes and stuff, everyone now refers to an outfit as perfect for the Goodwood Revival. It's become like an institution. People are really hard set on sort of dressing to impress, and it really indoctrinating the whole idea of it. It's really good.
Yeah, at some point I need to sort of start buying an outfit, put together an outfit.
I'll lend you some clothes for next year. We'll sort you out.
Well, we normally wrap these up with 5 questions, but since you've been on it before, you will have done some of these questions. Now, I might be wrong and you might not have done them, but I'm going to assume you've done them. But some of them are timeless. So what do you think is, actually, before we do that, state of car market at the moment?
Mad.
What sort of thing is just mad? Is that
mad? I mean, we had just silly things like, I guess obviously because of sort of supply issues at the moment with modern stuff, especially kind of run of the mill performance stuff. Like, we had a Range Rover SVR that we were offered the other day, and we looked at someone sort of jokingly said, "Do you know what how much over list they're trading for?" And we were like, "God, like, this is done." Yeah.
What are you talking about?
We buy any car, $5,000 profit immediately, and you're like, what? Like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. I don't know if have you seen what G63s are asking at the moment?
I know that
like 200 plus.
What?
And it's like, what? Like, people, there's queues of people seemingly willing to pay. Whether the people are just all out on a dime trying to speculate. Everybody, no one can get stock of them. I think there's issues with you've got issues with the chips from Japan and stuff at the moment and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, a conundrum has occurred in front of us, and like a culmination of like clearly issues along the supply chain. But yeah, people are at least asking 200 plus for what's a new GC63? 140, 150, 160 grand?
That's mad. I'm not that surprised, though.
And nor am I, yeah. But it is mad at the same time.
It's bonkers. And I don't know, it makes buying a car really hard because you know definitely. It's bonkers. I'm looking for a sort of family wagon at the moment. And I've been going to loads of dealerships, talking to salespeople. Some very good.
You're that guy. You've just been going around dealerships every Sunday.
Yeah, just kicking tires. Hello. Just kicking tires.
Yeah, would you go for the cash guy or the Duke? Yeah, I can see you in the cash guy. Actually,
this is what. Well, I think Skoda Octavia Estate. That's the one. I think it's quite
fair. It's huge inside. Yeah,
it's massive. But I was at Mercedes yesterday, and they have no stock. If you want to get a new car, it will take 6 months. If you want a new car, there's loads of options you can't spec.
Yeah, because they just can't fit them all. They can't get them
all.
They
can't. Yeah, they don't have the whatever it is, chips or something. So you can't get big screens and stuff like that. I know G-Wagon. A friend of mine is ordering one in Germany, and it's going to take 2 years.
Mad.
They ordered one like 4 months ago or something. So if you want a G-Wagon, you're stuck with essentially the used. You can't order a new one because it's just going to take forever. And even if you did, you can't get all of the nice options. If you want all the nice options,
you want to do it properly. Yeah.
You probably would. So you're stuck with looking at the small amount of used but not massively driven cars that are available. So the prices are people are just getting handed their money back, aren't they? After like 3 years, they're like, "We'll take your car. There's your money back."
Yeah. Well, one of the guys that works for me, he's got like I think it's a 20 plate John Cooper Works, mini, but with not a manual, GP. Not a GP, but just a standard John Cooper Works S with an auto gearbox, flappy gearbox thing in it. And he's done, I think, 15,000 miles on it, and he bought it new, and he stands to make 3 or 4 grand out of it. And you're like, nice. Because again, they just can't get them. They literally can't get it. It's brilliant. And good luck to him, frankly.
If you've got a car you can sell, and you don't need another car, the problem is if you don't, you have to buy something else.
Yeah.
If you can't buy something else,
then what's the point? You might as well just hang on to it. It's kind of a catch-22 because if you go out selling that, going, I've made a profit, then you spend said profit and paying overs on some other sort of run-of-the-mill car.
The only thing to do, I would say, is if you can order a new one, and ideally you've done this 6 months ago, but you can order a new one for the same price as whatever car you're getting out of, so that you get out of your car, you're in a new one, and it's cost you nothing.
Nothing.
That's
that's a nice place to be. It's had its knock-on effects, though. I mean, I was looking tentatively. I've somehow amassed more cars than I really want at the moment, and I thought I'm just going to consolidate these, and I've got sort of lots of 20, 30 grand cars that I've worked hard to gain, but I just don't have the time to use them. Some of them I just don't drive, and that's not good for them. Or it's some of them I've spent fortunes restoring and stuff, and I've finished them, and I'm like, cool, yeah, I've done that. Like next, and I'm getting a bit bored of it. So I thought I've always fancied an F12. I thought this would be a nice thing. I had a couple of things that I knew would be finished around this sort of time, and they have just been completed. It's about, I don't know, beginning of this year, January, February time, I was thinking, right, by the end of the year, get those cars like out of restoration, kind of have a little bit of fun with them, and then let's just consolidate this. Because main problem being storage. We're full base for storage. I've had to go and rent a house that's basically a warehouse so I can keep my bloody own cars there, because I'm so finite on space, and Georgia keeps buying cars, and I'm just there like, I can't breathe for cars. It's a real stupid first world problem to have. But I thought, let's just condense this. I want something fast, modern, reliable, and I just always loved an F12. And at that point, they were trading for like
145.
You could realistically, you knew you were going to get into one for like 135. Like if they've been sat on the market for like 145, 150 for ages, you knew that someone's going to take a bid. No, everything that was on the market is sold, and everything that's on the market now. You want something from Ferrari? It's 180 grand again. It's like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Like, you need something with the warranty, let's be honest. So you kind of want to buy something, and you think, oh, yeah, they'll be taking in loads of Part X's against 812s or whatever. And they are, but they're not asking what they were 6 months ago. Yeah, again, fair. Good luck to them. It prices me out of it, but I'm like, okay, all right.
They'll come back
I guess
down.
they will.
Maybe,
Of course they will.
at some point in time.
Yeah, I think they will.
That's why I got rid of my A12. I bought it when you were looking at F12s at the beginning.
Yeah.
And they seemed like good money. But the difference between F12 and 812, and I was like, bigger warranty, blah, blah, blah. Accepted I was going to lose a load of money on it. Bought it 3 months later. It's gone up loads.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope.
Sell. Yeah.
Sell.
Yeah.
I've had
you did the right thing there. Yeah, you did the right thing. You got away with it scot-free, yeah.
Well, yeah, but now I've got another bloody Ferrari, so that's probably depreciating.
Oh, you poor thing. My heart bleeds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you sit on these cars, and I bought that. I got into that one quite well. And you look at the price that things are going for, and you're like,
kind of tempted, yeah.
It's just you're just tempted, so tempted to just offload like everything, ride a bicycle for like a year.
Yeah. Exactly. Trust me, the thoughts cross my mind. I've started commuting a lot on my motorbikes now. I've been sort of collecting a few bikes over the last couple of years, and there's one or two that I love riding to work on, and I'm kind of like, this does it. I just need, we'll just keep the city Tonka toy Range Rover, and we'll get rid of everything else and just maybe park it in one thing that I know is just going to do well, and then and carry on. But then I drive something else, and I completely change my mind and come back to reality. But I totally agree.
We have no idea when it's going to end.
No,
this whole chip
scary.
shortage, whatever, like
then I'm not completely fluent in the ins and outs of the political side of everything going on, and certainly the import duties and stuff. But as things go on, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any certainly in the short to medium term. There's not going to be any positive shift in the way that we are dealing with our European suppliers, as it were.
No,
and I have no doubt in my mind that things are going to get worse before they get better for us as a nation in terms of being able to buy this stuff. Like, I don't think we're at a point where post-Christmas or in the new year everything's going to be, suddenly back to normal, prices will drop, everything's better. It's just not going to happen.
No.
It will come to a head, I hope, at some point, but you're right, we can't quantify it right now.
No, and until, with new stuff, until you can walk into a dealer and say, I want a car, and you get it 6 weeks later or whatever.
Like you used to, yeah.
Like you used to, and on cars that like no one cares about that much or whatever. Just at the moment, everything is bonkers, and it's not going to resolve. So you could sell everything, but you're like, well, I just can't buy anything now.
Yeah. Or if I do, I'm going to pay too much money for it.
Yeah, and you have that thing of like, I'm going to pay too much money.
If I ever paid for it, yeah.
Oh well.
I had a friend of mine who just bought a 992 Turbo S, and the residuals he financed it, and again, it paid overs for it as a used car, but the residuals they've offered him on it are just insane. Like a 4-year term, and he's basically going to get out of it with 20,000 miles on it theoretically at list price. It's like, this is mad. Mental. And which, GT3s and 2RSs and stuff you totally get.
Yeah.
But, okay, a Turbo S commands a slight premium, I get that. But for now, like the way that I mean, we'll be here for another podcast if we start talking about Porsche overs, but the way that's kind of had a knock-on effect with just the kind of more run-of-the-mill stuff like the Turbo S is just mad.
Well, the Turbo S, it actually surprised me. 992 completely surprised me in how that's done. And I think it's because it's entire new generation Turbo S, sort of, it's the one that everyone that's gone like, I've got loads of money and I want a fast car, they buy the Turbo S. And then supply has been really low, so all those people haven't been able to get them. I thought, historically, you buy a Turbo S, costs 180 grand, it's worth 130 grand, like a month later. That's generally how it works.
Yeah.
Now people have made their money, like...
They've made 20,
people
30
have
grand.
made money out of them.
Yeah, and then, this 150 grand new or whatever it is, 160 grand new, it's worth 200 grand by Christmas, and then the person who buys it off me puts it on a PCP for 4 years and then gets out of it 150 grand. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Good luck to that person, yeah.
Fair enough. Have you driven any of the 992 cars?
Just a Carrera.
Have you driven a Carrera S or a Carrera?
Yeah, that was a Carrera S, yeah.
I drove a Carrera 4S, the Targa.
Yeah, this was the Targa as well, yeah.
And I got out of that and thought, you know what? A 2S, non-Targa, so a bit lighter and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be
See, I just love if it were me and it wasn't going to be a GT or whatever. I just love the Targa. That roof operation. I could just stand. Cool. I'm like a child. I just stand there like clicking the key and doing it again. And I love having the kind of half convertible, half. I love convertibles, but I just think there's still a slight stigma attached to sort of middle-aged men driving around in. Yeah.
So that was where you've got convertible.
Yeah, quite. The Targa's sort of a compromise in my opinion. It's just making excuses for myself, but yeah, I love. It was really, and I'll be honest, I was surprised. It was a PDK, and in a straight line, I was gobsmacked how fast it was.
Yeah, it's
but
really
it did kind of. You used to have an RS3. It was that kind of like immediate, like bang, 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 bang kind of power, which is fun, but it was nothing on. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely faster, no question. But it doesn't excite me as much. No, quite.
Which is a shame.
Which I think you then get from the you've then got to get a 992 GT3 manual to kind of get that same golden years Metzger stuff.
I'm definitely in the camp now though that like, and I don't know why this is. But I would go, if I could, I would have a GT3 engine in like a C2S. I want the car to move around. I don't want it to have tons of grip.
Yeah.
And I want it to flow down a road. Whereas
have
a GT3
more fun with it.
Just like smashes down a road and you've got
But is that not where the kind of like the 4-litre Cayman kind of, I suppose that's where that kind of comes in?
Yeah,
it's not as...
I don't know when this podcast is going to come out. This podcast is going to come out in a while, so this car will have come out ages ago. The GT4 RS is coming out, which is going to have the GT3 engine in it.
Yeah, which is mega.
That's mad.
I think it looks great as well. I'm not offended, but it doesn't look... I was worried that it looked like Tech Art or someone had got hold of it and bolted loads of bits to it. Obviously, the wing's a bit bigger and stuff. I think it looks really, really mean.
Yeah, it's cool. And they've put a 911 engine, not even a 911 engine, a GT3 engine,
the proper one,
in a Cayman. Yeah. That's something people said they were never going to do.
Oh, that's mega.
But yeah, that will have come out like 6 weeks ago by the time this comes out.
Get old
right,
news.
okay. I did actually have some 5 questions. So what do you think is the most undervalued car at the moment? That is tricky.
I think depending on what you want out of a car, and this, to be honest, I'm looking at buying one at the moment. Something just a bit of fun that you can jump in and kind of enjoy. E46 M3 for a kind of fast drive stuff. And the other thing that I keep coming back to, and I'm sure it'd be a disaster if you actually own one, but these S63 coupes.
Yes.
I just think they're one of the most handsome cars Mercedes have ever made. And I love the CLs of the yesteryear, even the first gen, like the 55s, and then into the 63s of the last gen. They were great looking cars, but they were sort of a bit golf club. These are like muscle cars. They look so good and they're so fast and they actually drive really well. They're still wafty, of course, but they're not ship-like their predecessor. I think that is at 45, 50 grand. That's an incredible daily. And God forbid you say, "Oh, how much could you lose?" It probably will be worth 15 grand at some point. Which at that point
in time,
buy one. Yeah. And there's obviously so much to go wrong with it because it's their flagship S-Class. But I just think I keep looking at them. There's someone who lives in Richmond who's got an S65 coupe and an S63 coupe on their driveway on the green.
Yes.
And every time I drive past, I'm like, oh, so cool.
I don't know who would buy a 65 like that.
I actually know him, and he's very, very big Mercedes enthusiast. I met him recently. He came in here to view a car, and I was like, "You are my hero." But yeah, I think, like I say, E46 M3 for the kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. They are on the up and just great fun. Obviously, it has to be a manual. I think the convertibles are becoming less offensive and less kind of estate agent, but the coupe, a nice classy spec coupe at 13 to 15 grand. I don't think you're going to go wrong if it's got all the stuff done to it and the mileage, and you're going to have so much fun in it.
Yeah, I kind of want one. Yeah,
I found a silver one with red leather, and I think the red leather's Marmite, but I kind of like it. And just keep it stock. Just nice thing to smoke around.
Yeah, definitely. And those, for a long time I was looking at an S500 coupe. As I was like, this. You just look at like what they cost, especially and like 63s and 65s even more so.
Yeah,
like what they cost new and what they cost now.
Like the 63 is like what,
still
130 grand, and they're 40 odd grand now.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you say, you and the thing is, you turn up in one of them, so long as you haven't like murdered it out, you turn up anywhere in there, and people will go, "That's a nice car," and it's not. Oh, he thinks he's Billy Big Dick, or oh, that thing's really chavvy, or it's just a nice, classy. It's kind of a mature car in a way as well, without it being. And I think they've kind of got rid of the, like I said, the golf club image, and made it a little bit more fun as well.
Yeah,
That's a very good looking car.
They're nice, and it's just so comfy. You just
there's so much to be said for that.
Off you go. Right, what is the most interesting car to you at the moment?
To be honest, I think given the proximity to this podcast versus when it was announced, I think it's got, going back on what you just said, probably the GT4 RS, because it's kind of like, oh shit, they're still paying attention. Like they are actually building cars that people want to buy, and obviously there's a ploy within Porsche that they know exactly what they're fucking doing. They're printing money. Good luck to them, because they're building the most incredible cars to drive. But like you said, they've built the car that no one thought they would, and I think fair play to them. I think that's a really cool thing to have done. They're not just being driven by accountants and kind of number crunching.
The way that they're starting to position the cars, like we've had the GTS recently, and it sounds like they've actually put it in between the Carrera and a GT3, as opposed to just being
a faster. Yeah. It's not just a faster Carrera.
Yeah.
It's not like a body kit kind of thing, which it's always been. I always love the 991, specifically the Gen 2, but either the Gen 1 or 2. But the 991 Targa 4 GTS was such a cool looking car. But there's not much in it to drive it over a standard Carrera S. It's kind of like, again, you don't get that fizz from it, and I'm hoping that now with the new ones coming out, it's going to be like, holy shit, yeah, this is rapid, or this is so much better in whatever way, or it deserves to be, because often it's a huge price point as well difference.
Yeah, it'll be more dynamic, it'll be quicker, blah 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 blah, but it's not going to have the fizz. Because it's
not, because
impossible.
It's still that engine, and I agree. But going back on what you said, the most interesting car for me at the moment this week, it will change, I'm sure, tonight when something else comes out or whatever. But I thought that I was quite impressed. It was obviously rumoured that it would have the GT3 engine in it, and for them to actually have sort of put their money where their mouth is, I thought fair fucking play. That's a cool car.
It's as if, it feels to me as if Porsche have gone, hang on a minute, these cars are going to disappear. Like, we are not going to have combustion engines for that much longer.
They'll be under pressure to, naturally they are under pressure to really ramp up their electric program, and they're doing a great job of it. They're obviously leading the way in some senses, but for them to kind of really make the last of these opportunities is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Right, final question. 5-car garage. Unlimited value.
5-car garage. Okay. I know we did this before, so I'm sure it's going to be completely different now. So I'm going to go... okay, 5-car garage. I would love a 275 4-cam. That'd be in there. That'd be my sort of Italian offering. I'm not bothered. I think there's people go, 250 GTO. No, I actually want to drive the fucking thing. I don't want to just like...
yeah. Too loud.
Quite. So that would be that. 300 SL Roadster. I way prefer the Roadster to the Gullwing.
Yeah.
I actually love the Roadster with the hardtop on. I think it's such a beautiful car, and it'd have to be in that amazing raspberry pink metallic that they did. So that would be number 2. Number 3 would be DB4 GT. Love an Aston. Ooh. That'd be in there. These are all quite samey though. They're kind of like uncomfortable Grand Tourists.
Yeah,
quite. I tell you what I saw the other day, and this is kind of a bit of a wild card for me, because I'll be honest, I sort of blasphemy, but I think I was a little bit too young to really get the McLaren F1, and I think it skipped a beat. I've never looked at it and got the kind of horn that I know a lot of people do have for it, and rightly so. So I totally get the engineering feat of it. But I saw that Gordon Murray thing at the weekend for the first time, and I saw it in action as well, and I was just like, fuck me. If my numbers came in, that would definitely be on my shopping list. I think it is so cool, and just the noise alone, it is insane. I think they've done a really cool job of that.
I would buy that car for the ethos alone.
Absolutely,
because I don't think it looks that good.
No, it's certainly not going to win any beauty awards, but knowing why it looks the way it does, and just when Gordon did that that kind of Q&A day with all the kind of YouTubers down at his place, it was Harry Metcalf's video that really got me. It was like an hour long, two of them walking around the car, and he knew naturally, he's obsessive. He knew every detail about everything on it, and just watching how much thought and effort and energy has gone into it. And I'm sure it's the same with all mass-produced stuff. Even down to modern Bentleys and stuff like that. Yeah. Obviously, it's such a huge process that goes into it. But knowing that this is kind of like, I don't know, it feels a little bit more spit and sawdust, a little bit more rustic, and like this is like a man's done this. I don't know. I just loved it, and the silly fan on the back of it appeals to the kid inside me. I think it's quite. And again, hearing it the weekend for the first time, I was like, whoa. This is a special car. That is.
I'm looking forward to hearing that. One of the elements, and I don't know whether it was in that video or a similar video, is, and I'm sure all manufacturers actually do this sort of thing, but this was the first time I came across it. It was when they built the gear shift rig.
So, yeah.
So, and I just got this vision of Gordon sitting there going like, third, fourth, no, let's change it. We need a little bit of 0.0001 millimeters of extra spring rate, whatever, and then they'll sit there and go like click, click. And he's like, still not right.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Porsche probably going, fuck, so we do that with all of our cars.
That's why they're brilliant, and they cost $100,000,
not 2 million or whatever. What was that? Number 4, number 5.
Do you have a daily in this scenario?
Yeah, I think I need a daily, don't I? I'll tell you what, just because of, again, I'm a sucker for a Targa, and it's, for me, I actually, sorry to say, but I prefer the look of the F12 over the 812, but I would love an 812 GTS. I'd love an 812 GTS, just to, it'd be the car that actually, I guess out of the garage I've just listed, is actually going to get you to the south of France, but it's also the car that would be the most enjoyable, most fun, fastest, and whatever else. I think, so an 812 GTS would be a very, very nice daily.
That has got to be like, in terms of like peak sort of modern motor car, 812 GTS has got to be a bit of a high mark.
Yeah,
just
and again,
bonkers.
And now they've gone naturally silly money, and frankly, I think rightly so. I think they're. That was again another, and that was a sort of warm your cockle story with Ferrari as well, because it's like shit. They actually built a car that people wanted, and it's not a special edition. It's actually they haven't done it as a Barchetta or whatever. It's a production car that has completely catered to a massive demand, and it looks the nuts with the roof up, the roof down. It's not compromised with its kind of folding roof or anything. So fair play to Ferrari for building that. I
am absolutely waiting for those to go.
Yeah.
Because they made a lot.
They did. That's the only saving grace is they did, but they are still huge money. What are they now? 400 grand, 450 grand?
Yes, but if you'd asked me, talk to people a year ago, and I think they were 350 new, something like that, maybe 375, maybe for a high spec one, as a guess. They were like, they're going to be 250 in not that long.
Because who wants a convertible one? Yeah.
But we're in this crazy market, but crazy market go away. There's a lot of those cars, and it's a V12 Ferrari, and they generally shed value.
I don't know what it is about it, because the same is not entirely true of just the 812, but all the ones I've seen in the flesh, bar maybe one or two exceptions, have been really, really well spec'd. Then I haven't seen a red one. I haven't seen they've all been.
No, I've not seen one red one.
TDF blue or
green
Verde Scuro or whatever. So nice. Or even black. They look great in black. Like, I wouldn't want a black one, but they're just such a good looking car. So bravo. One of those, please.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me, mate.
Good to have you on.
Great to see you.